What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Optimize You, the podcast where we help you transform your health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, identity, and create that lasting change in your life. And we have a special guest today, somebody who I've learned just tons from here in the NCI community as a coach, and somebody who I'm excited to introduce. He is the host of Dieting from the Inside Out podcast. He's got an amazing group that has tons and tons of people that he's impacting on a daily basis. And so I am excited to bring to the Optimized You podcast, Jared Hamilton. What's going on, brother?
Damn, dude, how do I follow that? Like, now all these people are going to think I'm like somebody. I'm like, they're going to be like, oh, this guy. Who the fuck is this guy?
No, I'm sure after today, they're going to be like, oh, fuck, like, where can I go?
Yeah, let me sign up with Jared right
That's
now.
right. That's the goal, but then you never know. It's like, man, Alex made this dude sound so good. And they're like, he's just a short little cussing sailor kind of guy. That's kind of weird, but whatever. So I'm good though, man. I'm good. I appreciate you guys having me on. Always a pleasure. So
Good shit. And we also got my boy Matt here. What's going on, Matt?
What's up, fellas? Excited for this one today. It's been a long time coming. I've actually listened to a lot of Jared's podcast, so it's cool to actually be on one with him today. I think I mentioned to him at Coaching Con and how much he's already impacted me, my business, which in turn helps me impact other people. So super happy to have you here today, man.
appreciate that, man. Thank you. I mean, that means a lot.
Yeah, I'm excited, dude, because we're going to dive in today for everybody out there. We're going to dive into the inner game. So Jared's kind of, his whole deal is dieting from the inside out. It is the inner game. And I know me and Matt both vibe heavily with that topic as well. So we're going to kind of get into that and just kind of do like a roundtable format and just kind of try to provide a bunch of gold and value to the audience today, to everybody listening. So first off though, Jared, what I want to know is like, what do you define as like the inner game? Like what all entails that for you?
Yeah, that's a very deep question. It's interesting. I think a lot of people actually have different definitions of the inner game. What I'm talking about specifically as the inner game, whenever like I'm talking about in teaching and doing stuff with clients, is 90% of the time I'm talking about your inner darkness, right? It's the gross stuff. Or a mentor of mine, his name's Kyle Cease. He doesn't even like to call it inner darkness because it puts like a judgment with it. He calls it the unseenness. It's because it's this part of you that's never seen. By you, it just gets crazy deep really quick. But if I had to like a little more overview-esque of like what I define as the inner game is, we're talking about all these different layers of like who you think you are, like your identity from a fundamental standpoint, your relationship with yourself. And then in our world, I like to let it bleed into the relationship you have with things like food, the relationship with the scale, the relationship with your wardrobe, as weird as that sounds. But it's because we get triggered by those things. When someone goes into their closet and like they can't wear 90% of it and they just think about how much of a fat, unworthy piece of shit they are. Well, the trigger is your clothes. Like I actually had on my podcast a while back, she's a fashion designer who vibes with this kind of stuff. And I'd never thought about the relationship with a wardrobe, like the relationship with food. And she came on and threw down about that. But it's the same thing as like your relationship with food, because we have food in every walk of life. But if your relationship with food isn't good, we're going to have problems. But then your relationship with yourself is what reflects in every area in your life. You level up yourself, everything yourself touches, your work, your relationships, your happiness, your job, your money enhances. So I think all of those comprise the inner game, but more or less in this world, I'm talking about the dark stuff.
Good shit, dude. And what, when you say the dark stuff, you kind of almost talking about like the subconscious shit
Exactly.
that we don't even know, like the 90% of our thoughts and stuff that is not, it's basically automatic.
Yeah. That's why most people struggle with this forever. It's why most people just, we'll call a spade. It's why most people take their struggles to their grave, and why most can't do it on their own is because you're fighting. I mean, I word it like this. Think about you're fighting in your evil clone that only comes out when you're asleep. Like that's literally what you're up against. Is like when we're talking about sabotaging, we're talking about subconscious behaviors. It's subconscious, not unconscious when you're literally asleep, but subconscious as in you're not consciously aware you're doing or saying the things. But it's like your evil twin. It's like this dark part of you, these bad behaviors or these bad mentalities or identities. And it only comes out when you're not paying attention. So it's like, how the hell are you going to fix that? It's why coaching is so important and mentorship is so important, because people like us can go, you're doing it again. You're doing it again. Look, you just said, like yesterday, I had a call. This girl, her big issue was sabotage. Our whole call was about sabotage. It was time to invest in coaching because she literally said all this shit's on the line. She needs accountability. She needs support. And she'd been following my content forever. And she's like, okay, well, I need to think about it. I'm like, okay, but like, that's fine. But do you think this is sabotage setting in? Because she went from saying all this to like, you know what, I think I want to try this on my own. But I'm like, wait a second. Like, and I'm never one to twist arms on stuff like this, but part of my role as a coach is to question beliefs. And I go, wait, I thought you've been trying this for the last like 12 years and it hasn't been working. And you want to go into your 40th birthday having the best shape of your life. Right. But now you're saying you want to do it on your own, but you said like, you've got less than a year before your 40th birthday. So like what's going on? And it's what that is it's sabotage kicking in right away. Or, like, let's say I'll give away, let's say money's not even involved. I'm sure you guys have done the same way. Like you've given away free coaching, but how many people go, oh, I never win. I'm not even going to enter. That's sabotage setting in, but sabotage is really good at making direct failure in the thing you do not want sound like a really good idea, right? It's why most people quit and give up. Like there's no realm logically or emotionally that makes quitting and giving up give you the thing that you want. But why do so many people do it? It's because sabotage makes it sound like a really damn good idea. So that's the thing is it's this shit that we're actually up against. This is the inner darkness that we're up against, not calories and weight loss, not workouts. It's this shit, the old conditioning.
I love it, dude. I just changed my program around this shit. Like, because I'm obsessed with everything that you're talking about. Identity, sabotage. I struggle with this shit. Even up until the last like few months, I've struggled with a lot of this stuff. And like for me, I found it was sabotage, like the big thing that went down to my core. I just didn't believe I was worthy and I didn't believe I deserved the results. And so like for me, once I dug into those things and I was like, what's the root of this unworthiness? What's the root of why when I get something or I start moving towards my actual goal, that I end up thinking that I don't deserve it. I see myself in the mirror, I see the results I want, and then I go right down and go right back to a binge or go right back to where I was. And so I was like, and that stuff's so uncomfortable, right? Like going through that process of actually digging into your past of like where that came from, what point in Alex's life what frame am I frozen in to where I think that this is like constantly going on. It's like these different parts of me that continue to pull myself back, like those limiting beliefs, those limiting versions of myself. And so I love everything about that, man.
And along the lines of what Alex is saying here, it's like Alex had the self-awareness to be able to acknowledge where he was self-sabotaging. And that example that you used with that individual where you're speaking with her, it's almost like her self-sabotage was so sneaky that it just came out, like she just blurted it out. You're from a coaching perspective, you're like, oh, there it is. What would your advice be to, or encourage somebody to be able to have that kind of awareness around realizing that, oh man, I may be potentially self-sabotage. I may be in my own way. Like, what's your advice to those people?
It's a great question. You have to know the animal you're about to fight. You have to know. It's like, why I view it like any other competition. We'll just say like most people here get traditional sports. Why do football teams watch their opponents film? It's because they're like, man, 87 gets our guys every time. I want to know everything about 87. Or like a UFC fighter or a boxer leading up to that fight, they're watching their opponent's game tape because they want to know how they tick. They want to know when they flinch. They want to know when they're like on it, right? So because to have the best chances of success. To further that, I see this in parenting a lot because we work with a lot of moms. I always ask, I go, why? I said, I'll ask like on a group call or something. And I go, how many of you have had the sex, drugs, and peer pressure talk with your kids way before it ever became an issue? Everyone's hands go up. Go, exactly. Why though? So, but why? They go, because it's going to happen. I go, interesting. That's pretty sound advice. You know, this bad shit is guaranteed to happen and you don't want your kids in the trenches making decisions. You want them to have their decisions made well before this shit happens. And then ironically, most parents are like, look, they're going to say this. And then they're going to tell you, oh, your mom won't know. It's fine. But you're going to tell them this. And the parents will lay it out. And they're like, yeah, my mom said we were going to say that. Oh yeah, my mom said that was going to be a thing. But then she told me about this, right? The mom paints this motherfucker out, this picture, because she wants her kids to stay ready so they don't have to get ready. we view sabotage the same way. And you have to know down to the nitty gritty what this thing's going to look like. Because if it all of a sudden starts looking like a duck, quacking like a duck, waddling like a duck, I bet that thing's a duck. It's the same thing with sabotage. If you know what your sabotage mechanisms are, because here's what we do with clients is the first thing is we teach them like what I would call like the rough side of sabotage, like the rough outline of sabotage. Like the things like I always say, this is a very grotesque analogy, but I always say sabotage is seduction. It's not rape. Like to give an idea, like when you said it's sneaky, it is. Everyone thinks of sabotage is like this baseball bat hitting you in the face, like, bah, oh, roofie moment, whatever, this big boom. And it's like, oh, how did I not see that coming? It's not. It's seduction. It is so charismatic. It's so like, you know what? I've worked really hard. I think I'm going to take the entire weekend off and binge eat every day and then start over Monday. And that sounds like a great idea. It literally convinces you that's a legitimate option, right? So understanding that it's very, very persuasive, very charismatic, very seductive, understanding that's what you're up against. It's not this like, I'm gonna come and get you vibe. It is so sneaky. So now you're on red alert. Then part of the awareness game is you can't be aware and operating subconsciously. So you have to be aware all the time. This is where it's kind of, I like to say, a full-time job. Because the way that we teach is drifting happens before sabotage. Sabotage is when it's like, fuck, how'd I get back here? Drifting is when like, you don't even know the shit's moving, right? Like we were on a lake one time on vacation on a boat and we just like parked it, dropped the anchor, whatever. And then like 30 minutes went by and we were like 800 feet to the left. And I'm like, weren't we by that tree stump? But just the drifting of the boat, you didn't even notice it. No ripples, no nothing. And all of a sudden we're 800 feet away from the stump that we were in front of. Sabotage is no different. You are going to drift almost in a slow enough way that you're not going to realize you're moving until you're like way far gone. So you have to recognize it on the drift. So what we teach clients to get this awareness is, number one, if you refuse to sit with yourself, you're not going to learn the tendencies about yourself. If you refuse to sit with yourself, you cannot overcome yourself. A lot of people go, how do I get that awareness? But they won't meditate for 5 minutes. They stay distracted. If you cannot sit with yourself, you cannot overcome yourself. And most people, I swear, people are way more likely to do like a 1,200 calorie, 5-day a week CrossFit keto diet than they will meditate for 5 minutes, because they have to actually reckon with themselves. So if you are not willing to get to know yourself and sit with yourself, you're not going to get on the other side of your old self. You know what I mean? So I would say that's the number one, is really get acquainted with yourself. Start meditating, start writing out your emotions, start spending time alone with you with no distractions, because then you're going to learn everything. It's why I know my wife so well. And I know my wife arguably better than she knows herself. And likewise, she knows me almost better than I know me, because we've spent so much time together. She knows when I'm not okay. She knows the facial expressions I make subconsciously when something's bothering me. I could walk into a room and she goes, what's wrong? Because she can feel it, because we've spent so much time together. But most people aren't like that with themselves. So that's the other piece, is you have to start to get to fix that relationship with yourself, to now get the awareness around yourself. You can't avoid yourself, stay distracted all day with scrolling and working out and your job and all the things, and expect to then be this hyper Batman, like, oh, I know when they're there, I know when something's going wrong, and have these spidey senses going crazy. That's not how it works. And then it's simple from there on out. I say we play the if this then what game. What happens? What's happened the last 10 years? Every time you sabotage, you probably have a list of 5 things. Then go, if this happens, then what? Map it out. If this happens, then what? If this happens, then what? Then it's game over. That's like the consolidated version.
Wow. Love that. You really unpacked that for us. Cause again, I think the drifting analogy is exactly, myself included, right? Like, and I'm a fisherman, so I know exactly what you're talking about. So that analogy is right up my alley, but I think it paints a beautiful picture for people. I think, matter of fact, we were talking about the other day, is like, your ship's setting sail and you have no rudder, you have no motor, like you're just aimlessly going. And I love the pregame thing that you brought up too. I wish I had one of those buttons where we need one of those buttons, Alex, where we just make not the bomb. That's Brad Lee's, but we need something where people are dropping gems. And
I think they have it in here. Right, I think they have that in Riverside somewhere. I don't know where it's at, but I'm pretty sure they have it.
I'm taking note of that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. We'll just manually do it right now.
Got to be like really weird. I feel like it's got to be outrageous because like everybody has the regular ones dialed in, so it's got to be something like that, like kind of draws some eyeballs.
You need to just hire someone for that. You need to have your hype man, and so he's on payroll and he's just ready, and then he just goes wow or whatever in the background. That's what.
Like, who's that guy?
It's like a trunk monkey, but different.
Yeah, exactly. I think you brought up an amazing point too. It's like when you're watching the film, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to prep for this scenario to come up, not just hit the oh shit button and I'm so deep in that I'm like, okay, now obviously I have to do something now. But you talked about the pregame, watching film, prepping in case of, in spite of, not a matter of if, but when, it's going to come up at some point. So love that, man. That was absolute gold.
Thank you.
What would you tell? I'm going to take that a step further. What would you tell somebody? Let's say they have those acknowledgments, they've done those practices, but they find the repetitions. Maybe it is something that they can't sit with themselves very well. But what practices can they do in addition to, let's say, those 5-minute meditations, things that you found with your clients or even with yourself that's worked really well? If they find this coming up, they're like, okay, I have that awareness part of it, but I still am in my own way. Like I feel like I need to get more reps in. Like, what are some things that people can practice to kind of bridge that gap?
I think we need to get clarity first and foremost, because a lot of people say these terms that they're a little too open. Like when someone says, I'm in my own way. What's that? Like, what's that even mean? I bet like, a piece of content I want to do. I want to go interview style. Like I live in Indianapolis. So like to the big downtown Indy, and like you ever see those pieces of content where they're like, hey, what's the craziest thing you've ever done in bed? And they like interview random people on the streets. I want to take all these arbitrary terms and weight loss people use and ask 100 people what they mean. What does getting in my own way mean? What does eating healthy mean? What does making it happen mean, or whatever? What does being mindful mean? Because I think people don't understand what those things mean. And when we lack clarity, we lack execution. From a psychological standpoint, we thrive as humans having certainty. The only way we can get certainty if we have clarity. And too often when people say, I'm getting in my own way. Well, what's that mean? Oh, I'm sabotaging. What's that even mean? Okay, you're fucking something up. But let's paint this picture. Oh, well, I do great, but then the weekends get me. Oh, well, that's a whole different world than, oh, I know what to do, but don't do it. Right? Because if your issue is very arbitrary, we can't find solutions. We need to get specificity around, no. What does getting in my own way mean? Like we had a group coaching call the other day. And one of the ladies is having a hard time. And she said, what was it? She said that she feels like she's just all over the place and she is just like spiraling out of control. And I go, cool. Specifically though, what's that mean? Because like that's the worst feeling, is like spiraling out of control and nothing's going right. Cool. Are we meaning in general, like she can't go 5 minutes without spiraling out of control? Are we meaning just her weekends are kind of fucked up? Is it she does great, but she's like doing everything right, but the scale's not moving? Is it like what's this look like? And too often, one of the things sabotage does is to keep us in this arbitrary place because it's chaotic. But we need clarity. So I think that's the first thing people need to do is ask themselves, like, what's this mean? Or, okay, how do I get clarity? Like, what specific problem is this? Because hell, then it makes it really simple to kill the problem. I think that's the first thing. I think as far as other tactics, I think at the end of the day, you have to start fixing the relationship you have with yourself, as airy-fairy as that sounds. Whether that be starting to journal about your emotions and get those out, whether that be starting to sit with yourself, meditation style or whatever, nothing crazy. Nothing like, you don't have to wear beads. You don't have to go om. You just literally sit and quiet and listen to silence and see what comes up and just observe it. That's all you're doing is observing, like, oh, wow, I forgot about that. Okay. We're just going to put that over here and then just sit and be. Cause it's going to happen is we all have these emotional addictions. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, where it's almost like you're teaching a dog to sit for the first time. Because people go to start to fix the relationship with themselves and meditate and journal and do all this inner work. And they're like, everyone throws a hissy fit because it didn't work and it's been 2 weeks. And it's like, bro,
it's hard. It's hard.
You can eat 2 weeks worth of salads, but you don't look any different. Like, people still be fat, right? Or you can do 2 weeks worth of workouts and your clothes will fit the exact same. So, but people meditate for 2 days and they're like, oh my gosh, it didn't work. I have ADHD brain. And I go, yeah, me too. So it's going to take you a little bit longer. You stayed distracted for the last 30 years and you expect to be woke as fuck in like 2 days. Okay, that's fine. I always say give it 90 days.
Well, for 2 years, I still suck at it. Like I see so many people that are like, I can't meditate. I can't even sit down for a minute. I'm like, that's the point of meditation. Is I think people don't understand that the point is to detach from your thoughts and be able to kind of train your focus for more amount of time, because a lot of people have focus of 30 seconds.
But there's even a layer deep to that. I take it a step further and even go, there is no goal. Just be. That's the thing, is a lot of people go, I got to bring it back to my breath, or I got to focus on this and clear my mind. No, just be. Just let yourself be. And because we all have this almost addiction to an agenda and an outcome. Oh, no, the point of meditation is so I chill out or so I focus my thoughts. That's styles of meditation. But I think people at the end of the day, man, need to be able to be okay with just being. And it's one of my biggest struggles, because I'm like a psychopath that wants to kill shit every day. Not actually, I want to, I'm ambitious as hell. I have all these goals. I have all these outcomes. It's why my newest tattoos, I have them on each of my wrists. My right wrist says ambition and my left wrist says equanimity, because they have to live in harmony. Because if you're because you can't, if you have ambition without equanimity, you'll never make it. You have to be equanimity is releasing from outcomes, emotional neutrality. You care, but you really don't care. You're just being. But I'm also an ambitious psychopath where I'm I want to do crazy shit, but there's a world for me where these live together. And it's one of those things where too often people that we have, especially coming from weight loss, you have these expectations and these attachments of, I need to be in shape by this amount of time. I want to do this. I got to do this. But then they come to meditation and then they're like, I gotta be woke. I gotta be zen as fuck in the next 30 minutes, or I gotta and they take the same mentality and weight loss into meditation. I'm like, bro, meditation is just be, because it just let what comes up and observe it all. Cause I view it through the lens of the inner child, or an actual child. Imagine if you guys don't have kids, do you?
No.
Okay. So, but imagine if you did, and you're that busy dad who works 24s. Let's say you're a firefighter. You just finished working 24 hours on, or 48 hours on. And your little fucking 6-year-old has just been itching to see you and show you the stick he found in the leaf in the yard. And he's just being that 6-year-old. You come home from a 48-hour shift and that little fucker has just been waiting on you. And you pull up and he darts out to your car. He's like, daddy, 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 daddy. Look, I'm so excited. And he's freaking out. Imagine you trying to focus no, buddy, calm down. Let me go in the house first. No, that little fucker just hasn't seen you and just wants to share. That's it. So what do all of us do? We go, cool. Yeah, buddy, that's great. You're just letting him do his thing. That's exactly the mentality with when you get into this inner game stuff, is you've suppressed your emotions. You've suppressed the child's voice for who knows how long. For a lot of people listening, it's been years. And then the one time you sit down with this little fucker, you're now upset that it's and your brain's just bah. I think this is half the reason why so many people have ADHD, or they say they do, is because my unpopular opinion, again, not professional advice, I wonder how many people actually have ADHD and who suppress their thoughts and emotions for years on end. And so then when they sit with them, they're all over the place. That's my own prerogative. But it's almost, actually, it reminds me of the Family Guy clip that's where Stewie's like, mom, mommy, mama, what? And she looks at him, she goes, what? And he goes, hi. And that's all he wanted. That's all he wanted, was to her to acknowledge him and go, I see you. And then he's done. But I feel like it's the same thing with most people. They haven't sat with their shit. They haven't let their thoughts be free. And then when they finally sit with him, they're going batshit crazy, like a Super Bowl that you just threw into a small room. It's da, 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 da. Then they're like, oh no, this is wrong. It's no, just let that be for the next few weeks. And you'll notice it will get really quiet really quick. And then you'll get clarity.
That's awesome, dude. Have you ever looked into internal family systems therapy at all?
I love IFS.
Yeah.
Love IFS.
I've been diving into that lately, and it sounds a lot like some of the stuff you're talking about there, just with getting to know the different parts of you and your inner child, and healing that way, which is do you work that in with your clients?
I actually have a module in my video course called Inner Child and Weight Loss. Ironically, now we don't step beyond our scope, and like obviously, like when you're stepping into realms of inner child, like you got to be careful, like you're not doing a therapist job. But there is a level of most people's struggles with this weight loss stuff began when everyone says mom took me to Weight Watchers at 9. My mom started giving me half of her diet pills when I was 11, or I started noticing my fat rolls when I had them and the other kids at school didn't have them when I was 8. Right. Which means we have to unpack that, which means we have to, like for our clients, we're not doing like therapy sessions with them, but we're giving them the tools on like how to write, like what I call an inner child letter. We do that a lot. We have them write a lot of inner child letters. If they go to therapy, we'll tell them to bring this shit up in their therapy sessions. But also there's a reason we have therapists in our program. I have a lot of therapists in my program, because they don't know how, because that's the thing is I saw this giant gap, like in the weight loss world, no inner work at all. Everyone's just like a diet culture assholes. But then in the therapy mental health world, no one's addressing the stems of the shit around their weight loss. This is why we'll see people, they'll go to therapy to fix their binge eating and to fix their emotional bullshit, but their trigger is weight loss. And then they're like, yay, I'm good. Then they'll come to lose weight and they get triggered like an ex-boyfriend. Then they come to me. That's what normally happens with our people. It's because the only way to heal through this is you can't get too far away from your trigger. If you're like, I'm going to stop everything that has to do with weight loss and go way over here to therapy or a food freedom coach or whatever, well, you're so far from your trigger, of course you're going to feel better. Like I could get on if you're scared of heights, the bottom of the ladder feels great because you're not triggered. You get on the ladder, that's a whole different story because now the trigger's there. So it's the same thing here. We have to address this separately, but in the same container. That's like why I built my program the way I did, because it's in the same container, but they're staged separately, because we're not trying to lose all this weight while doing all this inner game stuff necessarily, but it's all kind of put together, because again, if you go too far from your trigger, you're not going to heal through this thing. You'll get good. And then you'll go back to like, yeah, I want to lose weight now. Why did my binge eating come back? And things like that.
Yeah, there's so many parallels to that too. And it even goes back to what you were talking about with the ambition and the equanimity. It's like, I think everybody gets into this, or the reason why they have failed in the past. And what I see is very common. I'm sure you guys can speak to this too, is they think it's this binary black and white process. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to cut my calories, I'm going to move more, and weight should just be flying off. Right. And we obviously know it's a lot deeper than that. So I think it's really good to point out, to be like, okay, yes, we want you to be a go-getter. Yes, we want that part of it to be absolutely there. It has to be. You have to have that clarity that we're talking about, but also have the flexibility to not ride the roller coaster, super high highs and really low lows. I think I heard somebody say, it was like, instead of riding like the Incredible Hulk, like go to the fair and ride like the little kiddie roller coaster, right? Like, so your highs and lows are like a lot less. Right. And so I hear that when you're speaking, man. And so I think people need to draw on that. Like, again, that would be another.
There you go. There you go. A little hype man dude behind Alex, just like he did it or whatever. That's right.
There it is. Yeah.
Right. Well, but like, that's the thing, is if you don't address this stuff deep where it stems from, you're going to be on that roller coaster. Like, to kind of draw a parallel, one of the biggest ones I had to do, was the hardest one I ever had to do, was approach this ambitious side of me, because it stemmed from, like, to be honest, and I'm more than happy to talk about it. It stemmed from growing up. I grew up growing up with my dad specifically. I started working for him when I was 13. My dad did construction. And so I started working for my dad when I was 13 to just make money and whatever. But later on, years later, he apologized and he realized everything. But he treated me and my brothers, who at 13, like we were 30-year-old men. Like we were 30-year-old workers. He just never saw the difference. It was just on the job site. Boom, we're in work mode. So where my ambitious psychopathness came from was, I don't want to get yelled at by my dad, or I don't want to get the disappointment when dad come back to the job site and it wasn't done right, because I was fucking 13, right? Like, of course I can't do drywall when I'm 13, but regardless, from an inner child perspective, I got yelled at a lot. I got frustrated at a lot. I got like, oh, this should have been better a lot. You don't think that shit creeps up to just because I'm ambitious in another world now, when I'm 30, I'm in my 30s now? Of course that shit comes up. So, but imagine if I just kept suppressing that with ambition. Imagine if I'm like, to be honest with you, that's how I built my business, is I had this, ironically, this unworthiness, never good enough, you're worthless mentality. And guess what I did? I used it and I built a fucking company. But here's the dangerous part. I built a company under emotional suppression. I started building my business because, I have to earn worthiness. I got to be really successful so my dad doesn't yell at me from when I was 13. That's not sustainable. That's not mentally healthy. That leads to burnout, leads to breaking. But here's where the dangerous part in my case was, it was what I equated to the survival of my family. It's how I made money. So now me healing through that means, if I feel worthy, then I'm not going to work as hard. That's fucking terrifying. For me, it was, but I had to work through that. Right. So I healed through that. We're good. But ironically, I'm no less ambitious, but I'm now not, I'm less trapped by my ambition. It's why I have a little more equanimity now than just ambition. That's really the true story behind my wrist tattoos. But it's the same thing with weight loss. If your weight loss stems from like your friends in school making fun of you, and now you're 3 decades past that, but you're still losing weight because of them, we got inner child work to do around that. If all of a sudden you were never good enough for your dad or your mom because they were like poking fun at you, or they always said you're the chubby kid, the chunky kid, whatever. I was called the husky kid. Like all those things. When the first thing I got into therapy, when I first started going to therapy, my therapist said, what labels did your mom give you? And I went, dink, 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 dink. And we had to unplug those. We had to unpack those. Otherwise, those little identities are still living in my body somewhere. So I had to unpack those. Like for me, I'm not the husky kid. I'm not Eeyore. I'm not the worrier. I'm not whatever. It's because we subconsciously align with who we think we are. So if part of your identity doesn't serve you, well, you are fucked. You're never going to get ahead. So this is why we have to unpack these from this. That's why the whole conversation's around dieting from the inside out. That's why my show's dieting from the inside out. The first stage of my coaching program's dieting from the inside out, is because if we do not do this work, nothing physical will last. It's why it's so important.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, no, that's huge. And I think it can be so difficult, right, to go there.
So hard.
I even found it so difficult to go there. Like I had like an alcohol problem, which really sparked me. I kind of call it the first domino that fell for me, that sparked my personal development journey, sparked me starting to overcome myself, starting to heal my past, my journey to really becoming who I am today, which is still somebody who's working on himself every week, but somebody who's in a lot more happiness and fulfillment than I was just a mere 6 months, year, 2 years ago. But like, what's your advice for the people who, they come to you, they're like 30, 40, 50 years old, maybe even older, and they've never addressed these things from their childhood? Because I think it just gets harder, right? Every year that you go without getting there, the healing becomes a lot harder. So like, what do you kind of talk about with those clients?
The cool thing is I've seen this happen firsthand with guys that are way better at this than I am. The age part's irrelevant is what's crazy. So I was recently invited, when was this? Probably 4 months ago, to Sedona. So one of my biggest heroes, Kyle Cease. Kyle, do you know Kyle, Alex?
I know him because you had him on your podcast, and I think when I had you in my group a while back, you were just having him on.
I don't know if I told you this, but like my dream came true. And after that podcast, Kyle wanted my number and to stay connected. And then he invited me out VIP status to come to his Sedona event. And like, I got to like hang out with Kyle, like literally like this dude changed my life. Like I'm telling you, this was like, dude, like my hero wants to be friends with me. I'm like, holy shit. So you want to talk about some shit coming up of like the whole I'm not worthy and good enough shit triggered? Boom. Yeah, we had some work to do around that. But anyway, I saw Kyle would do these little like Tony Robbins style breakthroughs. So I was at his event, and it was nothing but people my age and older, right? Like everyone middle age, right? Or even older. And he would do breakthroughs with people. I saw in like one afternoon, he did like 15 different breakthroughs in one session with people. Like someone would stand up, they talk about their stuff, and he'd ask him like 3 or 4 different questions, unpack stuff, and they were never the same. And we're talking about in a matter of like 15 minutes, like crazy shit. So the age stuff doesn't necessarily matter, because one of the things Kyle says is you don't need more time, you need more awareness. So a couple ways we help people have these breakthroughs is one of my favorite things to do is when people have like these issues that are coming up. My first question is I go, cool, when did that become a problem? How old were you? And everyone says 9, 14. Like everyone has like they think of like, it goes to a moment in time. Like I had a client of mine, she was feeling really unworthy about stuff. And I go, when did you start to feel unworthy? She says, October of 2009. I go, what happened in October of 2009? Or everyone has a vivid image as soon as you say, when does this stuff start? I go, cool. if I could just pull a magic trick right now and put you in the same room with that version of you, you think you'd have words? And they're like, I'd have a lot of words. I like, yeah, I absolutely would. I said, I think we need I think it's time to write a letter, because this is the cool thing about inner child work is you can quite literally do the equivalent of going back in time and having like that conversation, because that part of you still lives inside you. So, for example, like if I had to go, if like you guys were like, Jared, what would you say to 13-year-old Jared right now? It's like, dude, I would like 13-year-old Jared was a scared little boy. He was terrified. He had no idea what he was going to do in life. I could tell you all the things. And if I could be in the same room with him, I would be like, bro, like, listen, I know so-and-so's crazy. I know you're worried about this, but like, number one, it's okay. Thank you for like I appreciate you worrying so much because it kept us safe. But look, I'm an adult now. Like, you would never believe what we accomplished. Like all these things. And like I would have that kind of a conversation with him. And what happens is you're going to write a letter like that, like what you would say to that version. And you're probably going to get emotional, which is good, because that means you're doing it right. Like even me talking about this, I can like feel it, right? Like is because that means there's something there. And it's how you heal through this thing. One of the things Kyle says is that like the reason people do this work and they get emotional is because you're quite literally purging the old self. And the only way it knows how to leave is your eyes. That's literally it. They've even done like scientific studies when people are healing and they like put their tears under a microscope. It's not just tears. It's stress hormones, which is quite literally proof you are purging this part of you that is leaving. And once the mind expands, it never retracts. So you keep doing this work, and it's why you keep getting better and better and better and better. So that's like the easiest way, like I do it with people that we start people off with is I go, cool. When did this become a problem? And then I start to, cool. What would you say to that person? What would you say to that version of you? If I could put you in the same room, like, what would you say? Like big brother, big sister vibes. What would you say to them? Cool. You should probably say that. And that's where I like to start. Usually that's usually pretty dope spot.
That's awesome, dude. And you brought up the point too. Like, so when you have people write that letter to their inner child and they go back, obviously all those things that you said come from literally purging like stress hormones and getting everything out. I think it's a really cool perspective too. And I'd like to know your thoughts on this of imagine that person that comes to you and they're in that position. They're usually in a position of feeling inferior, feeling less than, feeling obviously inadequate, whatever it is that they got going on. As you're explaining that exercise, it almost putting themselves in the position, in those shoes of being the big brother, of being the big sister. Now they can kind of almost like stick their chest out a little bit, right? I think
100%.
Is that part of it too as well?
Yeah, there's a level of that, I'm sure. Here's a really good analogy of this. I just remembered this. There's a client I was working with. This is a great analogy for this. I had a client who a couple years ago, she was really struggling with binge eating. Like her first check-in had 4,000 calorie days on it, like real bad, like 10 years of binge eating, hardcore, lots of restrict, binge. But homegirl was petrified of gaining weight. I'm talking about like, I've never seen someone so scared to gain weight. And then ironically, her so scared to gain weight is making her gain weight, right? Like is making her literally eat like an asshole and all this stuff. And in our world, you have to earn the right to start losing weight. We don't lose weight until our program's a 3-stage. For those listening, the way that we teach is it's a 3-stage process. Our stage 1, we call dieting from the inside out, where we fix your inner game. Stage 2 is where now we can lean into fat loss, right? Stage 3 is a different thing. But so everyone knows upon signing up for coaching, we're not caring about weight loss until stage 2. That is it. Like you can say, I want to go into stage 2 so bad, but until we think you're ready, it's not going to happen. Well, this client every week was like, talking about like, I'm ready for stage 2. I want to go into stage 2. Oh my gosh. I'm just afraid I'm going to keep gaining weight. Did all this stuff because she was still binge eating and all these things. And we had to fix all this. And I told her, I want you to write. I said, remind me what age all these things happen, or like when you start with this weight loss issue became a thing. And she's like, I don't like 9, like 11 or whatever. And I said, cool. I want you to write a letter, like throw out any corny, this is stupid vibes. I said, I want you to go all in on this letter. I want you to write this letter to the 9-year-old version of you, giving her permission to gain weight. I said, I want you to write a letter to this girl saying, hey, you are allowed to gain weight. I will love you the same, no matter what. and you have my permission to not be so focused on weight loss and even gain weight. It's okay. I'm giving you permission. Her struggle ended by the snap of a finger. Literally, she was like, I have never received so much freedom in my life from that one letter. Because the thing she was really resistant to, we just gave permission. And then ironically, guess what? She lost weight like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like this. There's another side that we work with people. This is one Kyle's really helped me with, is the thing that we're so resistant to. We need to just give permission to be that. Like if you feel like we all know, like we have anxiety, running from anxiety just makes anxiety worse. When I get anxiety, I literally go, it's okay to feel this in my body. It's okay to be anxious in my body. And I give anxiety permission to be here. Guess what doesn't want to be here anymore? Anxiety. It's why the weight loss thing works for her. Now you actually have to mean that. You can't just be like, I'm going to trick it, whatever. But it was the same thing when when I got to the root struggles of my ambitious stuff, is because I was afraid of failing. I was afraid that I was going to be like, whatever, maybe repercussions from like my dad when I was little, or repercussions from whatever. And it was really hard. I had to actually give myself permission to fail. Holy shit, was that hard. I'm like, no, because if I question all these beliefs, I'm like, it's okay to fail in my body. It's okay to fail. That's something that Kyle would say. And then like what you observe, what comes up. And I go, no, it's not okay, because everything's going to crumble. But then I have to let that be okay. Fuck, man, going through that and like letting it all be okay. Like, yo, it's okay to, like, it's not going to actually happen, but from an inner child perspective, you have to accept before we can change.
It's almost like, figuring out what are these events in your life that trigger you to do the behaviors that you're not happy with, or that are maybe going against your goals or your dream outcome that you want in life. And then figuring out what that frozen version of you in time needs to hear to let yourself go from that, which is so cool, man.
The reason it works so well is because in a lot of cases, especially from an inner child perspective, fixing actually suppresses more. Case in point, imagine you have a kid that's sad. They just feel upset. And the parent says, why? You shouldn't be sad. Look you have all these toys. You have electricity. You have food. You have all these things. There's no reason to be sad. Like the parent's trying to fix, but in fixing is actually suppressing what that child feels, right? It's suppressing their reality. The kid's like, I have anxiety, or I'm scared, or I'm worried. And the mom's like, why? Nothing's wrong. You have everything you need. But it's like, versus what if you said, hey, it's okay to be sad here. You are allowed to be sad here. Fuck, that would do more for that little kid than anything. It's the same thing with us. I actually had a kid I did this with one time. It was a family member, and this kid was we were having a thing, like going out to dinner with my family at a pizza restaurant. And this kid was freaking the fuck out, temper tantrum style. And they causing a scene. So, and it was a family member. So I just took him outside. I'm like, you know what? I'm not, whatever. And cause I'm cool, Jared. So I'm just like, hey buddy, let's go outside. Took him outside. And behind the pizza joint was a pizza restaurant. And this kid was fuming. So I didn't yell at him. I didn't scold him. I didn't discipline him. I just said, hey buddy, what's going on? And he went and I said, here. And I picked up a handful of rocks and I said, hey, you want to throw rocks in the pond with me? What 6-year-old's not going to say yes to that? And I go, and he went to grab a rock and I said, now, and I closed my fist and I said, every rock, you have to tell me what you're feeling right now. Okay. He goes, okay. I held my hand out and he grabs one. He goes, I'm mad. I go, good. I love that. Do another. He goes, I'm scared. And he threw the rock. I go, okay, that's all right. You're allowed to be scared. What else? He goes, I don't know. And I go, so you're confused? He goes, yeah. 3 minutes go by. He was chill as fuck. Because I didn't suppress him. I literally gave him a physical outlet, but also I let him talk about it in just a little kid fashion. 3 minutes later, he was calm as a cucumber. Like that was like, it's because I wasn't suppressing it. We just need to make it okay to feel these things. That's it. Not necessarily act on our emotions and things like that, but to allow these things to come up. Like if you feel unworthy because of whatever reasons, or if you feel like a lost cause or whatever you're feeling, look at that through the lens of the inner child and just be like, it's okay to feel like that. And then all of a sudden that will slowly start to dissipate.
Dude, that's awesome. And first off, like this conversation is amazing. Like I'm definitely going to go through this and take notes on just things that I can like I literally I got a lot of stuff in my brain of just different things. And hopefully everybody out there, like you guys are taking in all this gold and, share this with a friend who needs to hear this. I feel like this is going to impact a lot of lives here, Jared. So I appreciate you coming on.
Of course.
And one thing I wanted to ask you, because I had a situation in my life recently that I just moved up to my parents' place for the summer. I'm moving down to Arizona this fall, getting out of the cold. And I had a situation come up when I was at my previous place that I was living at for like 3 years, where I found it's fucked up, but I will glaze over this part of it. I found a hidden camera in my room, and it was like just a super fucked up situation that like paranoid me for like 6 months. I ended up trying to like just get past it, right? And I thought I was past it. Like I was into a spot, but I kept struggling with like binge eating, and I kept struggling with like other habits that I was like, why can I, like, I'm in a good place. I've been healing myself. I've been doing these things, and I cannot for the life of me, like, fix these things. I got out of the environment, disappeared. And so like, I would love for you to talk about, so I feel like this is pretty on the lines of just what we're talking about right now. And it's something me and Matt have talked about a lot on the podcast recently, is like, for one, support system and people that you're around, and also your environment, and how much that's going to impact your ability to change and be able to heal from some of these things.
Mm-hmm. So for you, the struggle is like trusting again, or like binge eating, or like what specifically are you trying to work through?
So binge eating started popping into my life again. And like, it was emotional, like emotional eating.
Oh, I see.
And it was more or less like I didn't deal fully with the situation. And I was still in the place with the person who I thought did it. Right. So like it was more or less like an unsafe place, or like a place. So mine might be a little bit different than some people's, right? Like,
but it was emotional. It was emotionally driven binge eating.
Exactly.
Got it. So there's a few layers to this, especially since you've been working on yourself. You, like, I would call you a more advanced person with this, so we could do some other stuff. Out the gate, I would have your go-to. We need to start doing, if you're not already, like, I would do inner work tactically every day, no matter what, as in specifically, we need to start doing like meditation and journaling. Specifically what I would do, I would either, write out I would either like brain dump style with journaling, like how you're feeling, especially the times you're triggered. If you're most triggered, like upon awakening, do it then. If you're really triggered upon going to sleep, do it then. I mean, I always say you can be a journaling whore. You can't do it too much. But at the end of the day, because if we break down what is the binge eating, like if you start binge eating because of like you're feeling unsafe or worried or anxious or stressed, calling it what it is suppression of what you feel. So let me ask you this. If you had a son who was feeling unsafe and was stressed, and he comes to Dad Alex and says, Dad, I'm just feeling really unsafe and I'm worried and I'm stressed. What would you say to him?
I mean, I would tell him that's, completely all right to feel that way. And I would try to dig down and help him figure out why he was feeling that way.
So you wouldn't shove cereal in his face and say, get out of my face?
No.
Okay. So because whenever you do engage, and this is for everyone listening, when you do engage in emotional driven binge eating or emotional eating, you're basically telling your inner child to fuck off and go find cereal. It's literally from an inner child perspective. That's what's happening, is you're saying, you're not allowed to feel this around me. I'm only here for the good emotions. So just go get cereal and get out of my face. That's literally what emotional eating is saying to our own inner child, which sucks. So it's like, wow, no wonder this manifests in other areas. No wonder this isn't getting better. So, because a lot of people think emotional eating isn't that, it's just like a one-time thing. Right. But like, we have to call it what it is. It's emotional suppression and avoidance. And from an inner child perspective, this inner child, when you feel these things, it's just part of you that needs to be seen by you, though. It's loneliness that needs to be seen by you, or anxiety that needs to be seen by you, or unsafeness that needs to be seen by you. So when you hide it, you are not seeing it, when it's just this fucking 6-year-old that needs seen. So what I would do, this is a very Kyle Ceasey thing. I would, anytime you feel that, the other more advanced thing that you can do is like close your eyes, big deep breath, but this isn't just like an affirmation, and you actually have to receive it, is whatever you're feeling is you're allowed to feel whatever unsafe in my body. It's okay. and something's going to come up. Something is going, you're going to say that and something's going to go, bah! And then whatever that is, big deep breath, you're allowed to feel whatever the thing is in my body. You're going to keep doing that with whatever comes up. And at the end of it, there will be a level of peace. I promise. But it's almost like, imagine like the 6-year-old comes into your bedroom. It's like, Daddy, I'm scared. It's okay. You can be scared. Come on in. He might have something else, but then eventually it's going to be like, oh no, I'm good now. So that's what we need to do. But the hard part is doing it when you feel the urge to binge. That's the hard part is feeling when you have that urge and that like bam hit you is at the end of the day, this is like what I would call the more advanced form of journaling. Like we have clients do journaling when they're emotional all the time because it's a very easy entry, but this is really what we're trying to get to where they can go, it's okay to feel XYZ in my body and actually give yourself permission because that is the epitome of seeing it. You're not fixing it. You're seeing it. And then that's how you truly heal through this. This is how I'd see Kyle like do breakthroughs left and right with people. It was absurd. It's how I've had a lot of my breakthroughs. I actually had something that got for me personally, not quite this scenario, but something similar. That I didn't think about when I was at Kyle's event, and it started like to break down this thing of mine. And then I had a therapy session when I got home. It was actually a couples therapy session. My wife and I do couple sessions together, and it turned out to be a Jared session. And I mentioned this thing that came up, and bro, I broke down. This thing, like I started fucking crying. My wife has never even seen me cry like this. And then I think I cried 5 more times that day because it was still like coming, this thing that I had been struggling with since I was a kid, but it was because it finally got seen. That's all we need. It finally got seen. And so for you, that's what needs to happen. This thing just isn't seen. Whenever you're binging, it's just not being seen. So the thing is, as hard as it is, you need to see it and just let it be there. And then it will start to dissipate.
It's crazy because like, I love that advice, and that's huge. Just, it's almost like a good, like for me, a great addition to what I'm doing because so I moved out and like the last 2 weeks I was in this place, non-existent on binging. I think it was like more or less like like I said, I've been doing a lot of work this year just on myself and stuff, but like this stuff kept coming up. And I think it was almost like that just environment that I wasn't addressing it. And then all of a sudden I got out and I haven't in a month and a half had any issues with anything. Right. And like, I've been doing one thing I've noticed the shift for me is like when I feel emotions, like I don't grab, right. I'm not like, oh, food, like whatever else there is, like I used to struggle with alcohol, drugs, stuff like that. Like those are my suppression tools. And so now what I do is I like, okay, like why am I feeling this? But I like the step of almost like adding in before it's okay to feel this and then kind of dig into the reason why and the root. Cause like that kind of uncovered things for me where it's like, I had a thing just a few weeks ago where I just woke up. I wasn't feeling good. I was feeling like weird. I was feeling like just one of those days where you wake up, you're like, I don't know what's going on. Right. And what I did is I like dug into it. I was like, okay, well, why am I feeling this way? Okay. Well, why that? And all of a sudden I got down. I was like, didn't have direction that day. Like there was things that I wanted to do that I needed something else to happen before I could do them. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's fine that I feel this way. And now I can go forward and just live my life and kind of go at this with a different version. Then all of a sudden, an hour later, that step happened and I could go at it. And I was like, okay, like this is a lot different than before where I would have been feeling this way. I wouldn't have addressed why I was feeling that way or got into the whole deep inner stuff about it. I would have just gone right to food or gone right to alcohol or gone right to anything else that I thought was going to make me feel good in the moment. So I love that, dude. I think that's just amazing advice.
Can I add a layer to that?
Yeah.
So I love all of that. I would warn you though, be careful spending so much focus on the why though, ironically. The why is important, unplugging this and figuring out where it stems from, all that. But a lot of people will end up making the why the king versus the emotion. Case in point, if I say I'm pissed off, what's that statement about? It's about the emotion, pissed off. If I say I'm pissed off because this guy cut me off in traffic, what's the focus on now? It's on the guy. Another denial of the emotion. So we have to be careful in putting all the focus around, like, let's say someone's journaling. I feel sad because my boss was an asshole at work and I'm worried about this. And because my coworker said this, well, it's now about the person. It's not about you anymore versus no. Don't validate, don't put conditions. It's, I feel sad. You're allowed to feel sad in my body. Doesn't matter why. Like I was talking to someone the other day. They were so obsessed about the why. I go, you trying to figure, I said, you being so obsessed with the why is denying what is, which is the emotion. And we have to be careful with that. Cause yeah, it's important to get to the root cause, fix all that, but don't make that like your king or the God in this scenario. Make what you're feeling. Cause it almost doesn't matter, right? If like, let's say you were upset because you didn't have clarity. Yeah. You want to be able to find clarity and purpose and all that stuff. But at first it's just go, well, no, what do I feel? Leave it at that. Handle that. Cause like, it's like with a little kid, if a little kid's upset, cool. It's okay to be upset. You're allowed to be upset. Not like, well, why are you upset? Oh, you broke your toy. Oh, well, you have other toys. It's fine. Well, I'll buy you a new toy. Well, now it's about the toy. And then you're actually not hearing the child, them being upset because you're now making it about the toy. So we have to be careful not making the thing about the instance or the other person or the reason in a denial of what you're feeling. You see what I mean?
No, that makes sense.
It's a game changer.
That's huge. And I love that. When does it make sense then to go deeper? Cause I mean, that makes a lot of sense, or especially on a day to day, it sounds like on a day to day, like when you're feeling emotion, I think that is like, a game changer. Right. Mm-hmm. But like do you think like the deeper level is more or less when you're going at certain events, or is there like a time and period where you want to do that?
I don't know if there's a crystal clear one. I would say just from my perspective, I think when you're in the moment, you need to just like only about the emotion. Then after those emotions have subsided and you're okay, then we can like, okay, well, why'd this happen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's almost like if a client is binge eating or sabotaging, well, let's address what is right now. And then we can talk about like why and fix it for the future later. But in this heated moment, we need to not suppress what we're feeling with a why and just address what is. Then after things have chilled out for a minute, then we can go back and address the deeper, like, well, why did this even come up in the first place? You know what I mean? It's almost like if it's like me and my wife are, let's say, having an argument or something like that, or a disagreement. We need to handle like what's in front of us. And then after we've calmed down and things are good, we'll come back and like, okay, well, why did that even happen? How did that build up? Like, where did that go south at? In the heated moment is not when to have that conversation. I kind of view it the same way. So.
It's like you let the dust settle.
But using that as like feedback almost like after the fact to learn and grow. Like
yeah.
It's like, hey, let's address the emotion and then let's go back in time later when we're in a better state and let's figure out a way that we can make this not happen in the future.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Shit. Well, Matt, what do you think? Like we go at a few just rapid fire questions to finish up here and then let Jared get back to his day.
Read my mind, man. Yeah. Jared, we have a few rapid fires for you, man. No thinking off the top of
the top of the dome.
Yeah. Freestyling, right?
Freestyling.
So we'll go through a few here. Alex and I will kind of alternate, but just so people know a little bit more about Mr. Jared Hamilton. So first one, what is your go-to healthy breakfast, man?
I actually never eat breakfast.
Oh,
believe it or not. I'm never hungry in the mornings ever. I very rarely
intermittent fasting?
Not on purpose. I start my day with caffeine. I'm never hungry. If I am, I might it's like a protein bar because I'm basic as fuck, but that's about it.
Okay. So no breakfast, maybe a protein bar.
Yeah.
Whole breakfast food then. Like, like on the whole breakfast food type.
Like
thing.
if I'm at let's say on vacation and I can just I got to get whatever I want. I'm a hard B&G guy. Biscuits and gravy. Okay. Don't fuck around.
Good shit. How about what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Wow, that's good. What if it could work out better than you could ever have imagined?
I like that.
And then what's the worst advice you ever been given?
Be realistic. What's funny is that I actually, some very specific people came up to my brain when you said that so probably be realistic.
And this is a little bit deeper question, but is there like a moment in your life that you look back to that like changed the game for you? Like It was like, this was the domino, first domino.
Yeah. I love this story. This was a hard, maybe I handled this wrong, but maybe this is where that little ambitious, angry side of me helped a little bit. I don't know. But, so I am leaving. It was on the last night of my last like normal job. About to step into the realm of completely self-employed, complete entrepreneur life. No safety net. I built everything up and I'm getting ready to leave my like actual job. Ironically, I was at a Papa John's. So I was working at like a Papa John's, just working a ton of hours just to like make ends meet. And I just about had everything good with my like my business, right? Because at the time it was just personal training. But isn't that funny? Like personal trainer working at Papa John's. But either way, I'm like, dude, had to make my money, and then I'm like getting everything ready, and I'm like about to like be completely self-employed. And I did the 2-week notice. Everyone's like, rah, rah, you're going to crush it. We're so proud of you. You're going to kill it. Except for Andy. Andy was a motherfucker. I'm literally about to walk out. I just clocked out for the last time. And Andy says, like, my hand is on the push bar. Like, you want to talk about vivid and like a defining moment in time. And he goes, you'll be back. And I look at him. Mind you, Andy is a career delivery driver. He's in his 40s delivering pizza. If that's your thing, that's your thing. But like, mind you, like, just give context. He's a very unhappy man. And he goes, you'll be back. And I paused and I said, Andy, I don't think I will be. And mind you, I'm uncertain as fuck. I'm about to step into this scary realm of entrepreneurship, not knowing anything. And so he said, you'll be back. And I go, no, Andy, I don't think I will be. And he goes, oh no, they all come back, and walks away. And you want to talk about someone who had way more certainty than I did. He, with all the confidence in the world, he goes, oh no, they all come back, and walked away. And I left. Now, I quite enjoy going to that Papa John's to get pizza on a Friday night. And guess who's still working there? Yeah. Andy. I swear he knows, because I'll go in there and I'm cool as fuck. Be like, hey, Andy, what's up? He goes, hey, Jared. And he goes back to doing his stuff. I'm like, that's what I thought. But from a defining moment, dude, I put this chip on my shoulder from when I started. I'm like, I'm going to prove that motherfucker. Like, who knows? Maybe that's why I made it, quote unquote, made it on the other side, because I had that chip. I don't know. But like, I could have let it, like, that's why it was a defining moment, because I could have let that break me. I could have let that go, fuck, what if he's right, and lived there. But no, I said, I'm going to make that bastard eat his words. And that's kind of the mentality that I took with it. So that was one of my first defining moments. I've had a couple others, but that was the first one.
Love that, man. And then final one, dude, awesome story. Final one. What's Jared doing? If there's probably not a lot of it, but what's Jared doing in his spare time, or what's your favorite hobby?
Jiu-jitsu. 100%. Hard, like, love jiu-jitsu. Train 3-4 days a week. I don't compete or anything, but love rolling in the angry pajamas. So
love it, man. Awesome stuff, dude. Well, first of all, Jared, appreciate your time, man. I know Alex and I are super grateful for you taking time out of your day, drop some knowledge bombs on not just us, but everybody who's listening and tuning in. I know people are going to have to go back, listen to the, check out the markers wherever you guys got them. But yeah, man, we really appreciate you, dude.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having me on. This has been great. So
yeah, thanks, man. And that, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, share this one, share the shit out of this one. This one is going to impact some lives, like you said. So thanks again, Jared. Matt, you're the man. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks, guys.